Hey guys, let's talk about another Infinity game, this time between the Combined Army and the Nomads. It's going to be the rescue mission. So let's get into it. I want to start off by talking about this image of the Noctifier right here. It's prone just next to the staircase. This model, deployed in hidden deployment, doesn't get revealed for the entire game, so this is the only time we'll even see him. But yeah, so we're going to use a table which hopefully will be based or inspired at least on, inspired by the picture in the rulebook of how to lay out the terrain. So we've got some pretty big pieces and some pretty big fire lanes as well. In this deployment zone, we've got the sniper tower and Nomad sitting up here. I've won the role for Lieutenant Roll-Off, but I've opted to go second specifically, so he's able to go first and deploy second. I think that's the right way to go for this mission. The thing about rescue is you can put a lot of resources into moving a model to get a hostage and rescue one of the civilians, and then spend a lot of orders retreating and hiding that hostage, and that can be one way to win. But think of how much effort you have to go to do that. You have to spend all the orders going over there, you have to spend orders passing the willpower check, all orders coming back and hiding, and if your opponent just manages to shoot you at some point with a hidden deployment model, or in their turn comes over and shoots you and you lose control of that civilian, it was all for nothing. Which is why I think that having the final turn could be quite strong if you've got some way of going after them and actually destroying the model holding their civilian. However, I do think it's a really good mission in the sense that even if you don't manage to be lucky enough to have the last turn, you can cripple them so badly that they don't have anything to chase you with, and also you can find places to hide with a civilian. But regardless, I think second turn has a slight advantage, so I've opted second. So Nomads, let's talk about it. So we've got, let's just get out the little drawing tool. Okay, so we'll get a nice blue over here. So this is a Jaguar. We've got another Alguacil back here and a Transconductors on Flash Pulse, but the Dactari at the top here, of course, ready to help out this Intruder, which we later discover is an Intruder with an HMG. Jaguar here. This model here and this model here and this model here, they are the objectives for this game. There's also one further behind here. I'll get my camera out of the way so you can see there's a little line. In fact, I might get another color just to sort of show a bit more clearly where the objectives are, just roughly. And these are the hostages that I'm trying to recapture for the Combined Army, if that makes sense. Got another Jaguar back here. Now there's a Moran in the middle here. It's prone. It's holding on to a Crazy Koala right about here and on top of this. So his strategy is quite a good one. He's going to be laying out a lot of mines, a lot of Crazy Koalas to actually kill me if I send a model over to actually try and capture one of those objectives. This model here is not really a Nomad model so much. It's an HVT that does belong to the Nomad side. We've got a Jaguar with a Panzer Force back here and a Walker here. He actually has 15 regular orders and 2 irregular orders, so it's actually quite a swarmy Nomad list compared to what we're used to. Okay, moving on the other side of the table, this is a bit of a top-down view of what we just saw here. So you can see his Moran there, you can see his Warcore and so forth. So just a bit of top-down view of his side of the table. On the right-hand side of the table for Nomads, move my face. So you can sort of see how the deployment operated through the middle. But if we look at the right-hand side, we'll get out the drawer tool again. Another Jaguar, another Alguacil, probably the Lieutenant here, another Alguacil right here, another Moran. So it's got a Crazy Koala here. You can't see it, but there's a Crazy Koala at the bottom of the stairway as well. Note that there's a camo marker here and another camo marker here. We'll discover later that one of these camo markers is a mine because it's a mine laying 0. So you can see that this is the correct 0 here, and this is the mine placed in such a way that it'll actually shoot anything coming around the corner through here to actually get the civilian hostages or around to this side. So the mine's actually in a pretty good spot, I must say. Okay, so now onto my side. I'm playing Combined Army. Let's have a look. So, obviously we've got a Preta here in Group 2. The Imetron has landed successfully in Group 2. We've got a Dacharatse right here, and there's a Flash Pulse R-drone at the back. This alien here is a Preta in Group 1, and in the background you can sort of see a Dr. Worm and a TR bot. We've also got the the marker with HMG, and right at the bottom of the staircase here, there's of course our Noctifier, who doesn't even show up this game. Alright, in the middle, so you can see the Dacia Artsai, also an Icodron hanging out as well. The Silhouette 6, ominous looking Silhouette 6 marker is a TO camo marker, and because it's prone it can't be a Sphinx, therefore it must be an Anathaematic, and in this case I'm using the Anathaematic as my lieutenant. I think it's pretty straightforward to say that the best Anathaematic profile is the Lieutenant Hacker, because it becomes a specialist. You can use Sucker Punch, the Plasma Gun is very, very good. It's very difficult to use the Spitfire and the Sepsitor effectively with this profile. And of course, more Predators, more Dacia Artsai. Through to the middle to the right, Mark Rep's prone on the building, of course. We've got another Icodron, another Unidron, and another Predator on the side here. And what had also happened is that the Imetron, I tried to deploy it around about here, but it actually got dispersed all the way over to this point. But luckily still on the table and still behind a little bit of cover, so we might actually manage to keep that one alive. Now my opponent goes for a superior infiltration of Bran de Castro, the Monkey King. And note that this particular scenario has an exclusion zone, which also acts as difficult terrain and a saturation zone. But Bran can deploy over top of or beyond the exclusion strip into the very small dead zone between my deployment zone and the exclusion. And he does successfully roll for that and appears here. So he's just going to be able to move out and actually capture some hostages right from the first order, and that is indeed what he does. So you can see he's just moved towards the edge of the terrain here, looking to get line of sight to one of my Icodrons to start attacking. So what happens is that there's a bit of a firefight, and you can see there's a line of fire from Bran through to this particular Icodron. Nothing else can really see. There's a Unidron here, but the back of its space, I mean, it can't really get a decent line of sight through there, if you can sort of appreciate that. So obviously we've got our camo marker with Bran here, and the Icodron responding with a flash pulse. Now unfortunately for Bran, he's having to shoot, well, he can ignore the saturation zone because it's along this line here where the civilians are, but it's -3 for range, -3 for cover. So Bran with Blissical 11 only needs 5s, and the first couple of volleys he didn't actually manage to get any kills, any hits through. I didn't manage to blind him either, but as he started to see his orders dwindling away, I mean, I've already spent 1 command token to reduce his order pool by 2. He's got an irregular order in group 1 as well, and now he's spent a couple of orders just wasting on the Icodron. He decides to just go for it and see if he can nab the hostage without dying. Now, if he moves across here and successfully picks up the civilian to civ evac, and then gets blinded, he's okay. But if he gets blinded, I believe that capturing the civilian counts as an attack. So if the flash pulse does blind him, he's not going to be able to have a second go at this. Luckily for him, what happens though is he does manage to avoid getting blinded, and he does pick up the civilian and does run off with it. So pretty cool, monkey-like. So you can sort of see what the situation is like that. The Icodron's shooting its flash pulse through this gap here. Bran is now able to just start running in this direction, and that is exactly what he does. So you can sort of see here, he comes all the way back. He started out around about the spot where the X is and just runs all the way around here. Annoyingly, he doesn't actually run into the line of fire of my Noctifier. Had he gone the other direction and come across this line here and actually headed this way towards this side of the table, the Noctifier would have actually had a crack at shooting him, which would have been a lot of fun. But that didn't eventuate. So elsewhere on the table, this is his right hand flank. We've got a camo marker which now moves out, which we know is going to be the 0 mine layer. So what the 0 is going to try and do is come to this position here and put down a mine such that it's going to actually help protect this alleyway even further against models coming around the side. But then, of course, it's my turn, and we managed to capture this beautiful photo of this this resin alien model. I was able to balance the model physically on the side of the building, and it looks as though it's leaping over it, which in fact is what it's actually doing in the game. It's using climbing plus to actually get up to the top through its impetuous move. Further over here, so note that there's a war core right here, and the war core is trying to flash pulse this Dacheratsi, who then throws a smoke grenade in the way. In fact, the smoke grenade, after we replaced it, was actually meant to be around about here, so that the template in this photograph isn't actually quite right. The Predator moves across this path. This is the Predator in Group 1, but gets flash pulsed and gets blinded. So all the orders were going to be spent pumped into this guy to move around and clear some mines and get some kills, but he's been blinded already, which was irritating. Then we have the other Predator sort of moving out. Notice that its start location was around about here. The Impetuous move took it this way, but actually no, I take that back. The Impetuous move didn't take it that way. The Impetuous move actually took it across this because that was the more direct path using Climbing Plus to get to the nearest enemy model. So there you have it. Cool. Okay, so back on the left-hand flank, that Predator that you saw climbing up through its Impetuous move now gets hit by a flash pulse again. The war core is still alive, is able to flash pace through their grill. We had a look at it very carefully, and there was a little bit of a sliver of line of sight to be able to see enough of the silhouette. But there is this guy here. So what happens is that the Zero who'd climbed up in the previous turn dodges. The Predator tries to avoid the flash pulse and gets blinded. I initially tried to actually just either keep moving or drop prone or do my chain rifle. I can't remember what I did. All I remember though is I got blinded and I can't continue attacking. But luckily the Predator, yeah, so I went prone. I tried to avoid the flash pulse and then get into close combat a little bit later. Didn't quite work out the way I wanted it though. So, on this side of the table, we've now got a Predator moving back round. So it started out around about here, and we're coming around this side. And the idea here is that if it moves around far enough here, it can actually move out to attack camo marker, which he's got behind this wall, which I know is a bandit because it was an irregular camo marker, so that can only mean one thing. If the Predator is successful, we might be able to go after some of the guys up here and clear some of the crazy koalas, so that is the plan. What ends up happening though is that when the bandit reveals, so we've got a situation where it shoots its glue gun, the adhesive launcher, and I tried to dodge this, but he gets me with it. So the Predator is just completely glued and immobilized unless in some unlikely situation I manage to get my Dr. Worm mechanoid Obsidon over there and actually heal the condition, but we know that's not going to be happening. So there he is, he's immobilized. If I get the picture, get the camera out of the way. So that is that. What I decided to do now though is move out with the Q drone with an HMG because the bandit's been revealed and the Q drone stands a pretty good chance of blasting him. So what happens is the Q drone's moving around here to actually get at the bandit, and if we sort of draw a picture of where it is, the bandit, as we know, is in this location behind the building, and the Q drone's going to walk around here and shoot at him. Okay, so we can take that angle. So what ends up happening is we walk around here. Now, my opponent rolled some dice and rolled a crit, but then we measured it, and I explained to him that the Q-drone was trying to come around here as much as possible to be able to shoot at the bandit from the long range. So, so it wasn't that the bandit got a crit; it was that the Q drone, I believe, got a hit that it would have only got if I'd been within that correct range band. In a tournament, I think it's really got to either just move your model physically first, and then get your opponent to do the arrow, like it says in the rules. We play this a bit sloppily here, and I think I was a bit unkind in the sense that I was insisting on just saying that my intention was to actually move around and stay out of the 16-inch line of sight, but realistically I should have actually been a bit more pedantic and meticulous with moving it. So yeah, props to my opponent. It was just a friendly mess around game, but I really recommend not doing what I do and actually be very clear about the exact trajectory of your model, because that's the fairest way for your opponent. But anyway, the HMG does take out the bandit. So we move on at this point, and I want to say at this point in the game that this is where the game unfortunately becomes a bit of a misgame, and we actually agreed to do something illegal, which we didn't know was illegal at the time, and that is for the Q drone to actually try to rescue one of the hostages. The reason it cannot do that is that the rules explicitly state that you cannot do it if you're are a remote. So we didn't realize at the time, we'd forgotten that remotes can't pick up hostages. So in this game, the Q drone actually picks up a hostage and tries to rescue it, and then we play out the game based on that. Now the final end result scoring of the game wouldn't have mattered whether we'd done this or not, but the middle period of the game sort of did hinge a little bit on me actually making this move. So you guys just bear this in mind. Elsewhere, we've got a Datrite who's thrown some smoke, and we've got a Predator who's actually moved into the corner under the cover of that smoke. And then, of course, we've got the Q drone who has successfully killed a crazy koala and run all the way back here. So he's brought this civilian back to very close to my deployment zone in this sort of dead man zone here, which it shouldn't have been able to do, I must add. So now that it's his turn, what he's going to try and do is he's going to move out with his Jaguar, bearing in mind that this Predator is completely glued down and immobilized, so cannot respond. So that's what the Jaguar's doing. So the Jaguar continues moving around here, and this plan is to get into close combat with this Q drone and eliminate it, so that I can't take I have to bring something else around to collect the civilian. Interestingly enough, had it been legal for me to bring it around, even if the Q drone dies, I can pick it up with something else and then bring it to the deployment zone. The Jaguar's not allowed to actually rescue his own hostage and bring that back again. You can't do that. So the Jaguar comes in, gets into close combat. Funnily enough here, the first attack gets through the electric pulse and I pass the armor save, and then the second attack does roll less than a 7, he gets immobilized by the electric pulse, which was hilarious. But that's the risk you run when you don't have like a really good high CC value or martial arts level 4. So yeah, the Q drone fends this off. You have to also say, would he have gone after the Q drone in that way if the Q drone had actually just been like hanging out behind cover, acting as an aero piece instead of going after the hostage? Who knows? Elsewhere, the Zero has managed to destroy the Predator that was menacing it, and now actually moves out to try and shoot some of these distant targets like this Echidron back here. It can't really engage with this very easily because the Q drone's in combat with his own guy. But he does have a crack at taking out the Echidron, but fails miserably to actually get his bullets to traverse that range, so he's hitting on like 5s and doesn't get anything through, sadly. Moving on though, okay, so this is a point where, okay, again, the Predator is immobilized. We've got an intruder which has now moved onto the roof with his HMG and just shoots short range at the Predator. It takes him 2 orders to do it, mind you. There is a saturation zone and he's at -3 range, but eventually he does kill the Predator. So that clears out and he does go back prone later on. So that's a picture of him taking out the Predator here. We've got the bandit who's down and the HVT there, and he's still got his Moran with 1 crazy koala. There was a second crazy koala further back here. I'll just point out the position of it, but the Q drone has destroyed that, and it was legal for the Q drone to at least do that. Okay, so coming to Combined Army turn 2, we've got another Predator which now moves up the staircase, gets flash pulsed again by the Warcore again, but this time does survive, and I've got some stuff I want to get done with this guy. The Zero has gone back into camo mode, as you guys can clearly see here, and it is also prone. So taking a bit of risk here. This is a game where the mark rep didn't have a lot to do, so I figured, well, I may as well take a risk here and risk losing the mark rep to get rid of this Jaguar with Panzerfaust. So it's 3 dice versus 1 dice. The odds were pretty good for me to win this, and I did win it. If he had destroyed the mark rep though and I'd lost it, there were a lot of other ways that I could still win. So I wasn't too worried about this particular model here, but success. So, as we saw, there's a Predator, and the Predator now walks into close combat with the Zero, and they have a bit of fight. The reason I decided to do it this way is that if I attack and don't kill him, I can just leave him there for the rest of the game. If I attack and take a wound, well, I'm dogged and I can just fuel more orders into attacking him. So the likelihood was that I was able to trade the Predator for the Zero, and as it happened, the first dice roll did get in, and he munched this guy. By the way, guys, watched the movie Alien Covenant the other night, and I actually enjoyed it. I had very low expectations because A, it's a Hollywood movie, and B, Prometheus wasn't particularly good. but I thought that Alien Covenant really exceeded my expectations. Michael Fassbender plays the villain and the hero in that movie, and he did a fantastic job. And also that scene, I guess I better not spoiler it, you guys, but there's a particular scene halfway through the movie which really blew me away. So after I saw that, yeah, expectations raised. Just while we're on the topic of aliens. But okay, so let's continue on with the game. This Predator at this point is able to move to a position where it basically attracts the attention of the Walker, which fires another flash pulse, right? But there's effectively a mine here which goes off, which I can trigger with the Predator, and a crazy koala which goes off and triggers it as well. And the result is that the Predator just simply dodges on physical 14 and easily just clears the whole lot, which I thought was a really good outcome. And that's why the Predator is one of the reasons why the Predator is such an amazing unit, is that physical 14 for a 7-point model which has 6/6 speed, just so easy to get into position to do plays like this. Really effective. Elsewhere, I've spent a whole lot of orders moving the mark rep tracker all the way from one side of the board to this side of the board, and this time he actually just shoots at the Walker and destroys him with one order here. And at this point I can happily leave the mark rep tracker here. This large building here is blocking line of sight from the intruder, which is further up a field. So this is quite a good spot for me to provide AROs, even with just one model standing out in the open with an HMG. So you can sort of see here that the Predator is now able to climb down the building and actually take care of yet another mine here and another crazy koala, now that I've actually got a little bit closer. So the Predator does this successfully as well. So he's cleared out the first wave of mines and koalas. Now he's going in for the second lot and surviving that as well. So the Walker is destroyed at this point, so it can't respond. This Moran is prone. So the Predator really gonna make my final turn very comfortable. And that's what this is all about, just gearing up for that final turn where you can just score very easily. In other news, we've got an R drone which has moved up from my deployment zone somewhere to here, where it can provide its repeater bonus a bit more easily. This Datratsai has been killed, but the other Datratsai has moved around here, where it can actually help to provide its chain rifle, just in case any AD troops come along the side at that point there. So where are we at? This is a look from the right hand side of the table. You can see the Dr. Worm sort of behind here. So this combat's still raging on. I've moved an Echidron at this point around the side so that the Echidron can actually help to defend the civilian if the Jaguar does destroy the Q-drone in close combat. So that's a bit of a backup there with the double flamers. So that's the plan at that stage, but he has his final turn to go. What he can do though now is actually move his Moran with the combi rifle and shoot at this Predator hanging out here, and with the Predator simply just dodging, even with the 2 bullets going through the saturation zone, the Predator is destroyed by the combi rifle after this round. So that's that. Next up, you can sort of see the positioning of it. I mean, the Predator has tried to dodge to a better spot, but he doesn't avoid the Moran over there, and the second volley does kill him. Now, we have another camo marker which comes out of hidden deployment, and it was hidden deployed around about here. It hops down the staircase, or hops down the side of the building, and is able to move out through here. And we know it's a Spectre because it's Nomads, right? So what's happening is the Spectre is continuing to move down this alleyway. There's only an Echidron to try and discover it, and he's probably going to be going for this particular civilian here to evacuate it. What ends up happening is that the Spectre moves up the staircase and gets discovered by the mark rep. So at this point, the Spectre is going to have to try and shoot through the saturation zone against the mark rep and the Echidron. And what ends up happening is that the Echidron does manage to flash pulse him and blind him, even though the Spectre does actually fire at close range at the mark rep and kills the mark rep. Also, while this is happening, he reactivates his Jaguar, which got immobilized by the electric pulse in the previous turn, and gets immobilized a second time. How unlucky can you get? So the Jaguar just being immobilized just shuts him down. There's nothing else he can do. This is the last turn of the game, and the Echidron's still there. So I'm going to be able to survive with this civilian evacuated. Note that he's still winning because he's got Brand de Castro with a hostage in his deployment zone, whereas I've got this Q drone only in the center exclusion zone, really, because technically this model is, I mean, if you draw a line down here, we're going to have to call it and say that it's actually in the exclusion zone rather than in the dead zone, I think is the fairest way to play it. So, there's not too much else that he can do with his final turn. The Spectre's been blinded, he's taken out the Mark Rep, but he's just got nothing else to do, so he's putting everything into suppression fire. He's got a Jaguar moving out around this side. It's not going to do much good. Just trying to help defend with his chain rifle against this objective. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing too much else that can go on. So it's the final turn of the game, combined army ready to go. And we looked at the score and realized that it wouldn't have been enough for me to just go and get a classified objective, for example, because I get only 1 point for having my guy within the central strip, and he gets 4 for having a model his deployment zone. So really what I should be aiming for is to kill Bran, and that's all I need to do to win. We also realized that according to the Civ Evac rules, you can use one of your own models to get the civilian off of one of your other models, unless I'm reading that incorrectly. What I considered doing was getting the Echidron to actually take the civilian off of the Q drone, but this was the point where we'd realized that, oh, remotes can't do that. I could have moved Dr. Worm out to do it, but there was an intruder there, so that wouldn't have gone too well. So what we're actually going to do is finally move the Anathaematic out, and he's been waiting, and now is his time. So he's heading in this direction. So Anathaematic starts rolling out. We've got about 7 or 8 orders plus the Lieutenant order to do this with. Now note that his Spectre, although he was blinded, is a assault hacker. Now I don't think that Flash Pulse blinding you stops you from hacking. I don't think it does that. I'm not 100% sure. But regardless, there's a lot of things around here that could shoot me after I've revealed. So the Anathaematic just walking down the alleyway, and in the meantime, coordinated order, I'm using the Echidron to actually try and burn the Spectre. Spectre passed both saves. Couldn't believe it. So I'd done this just to allow the Anathaematic to have more than one attempt at trying to kill Bran, because he's going to get within range of a repeater as soon as he reveals himself, which is going to cause the Spectre to hack him. So I tried this, but this completely failed miserably, and the intruder shot this thing to death as it walked out there. So all that I can really do at this point is move the Anathaematic to this spot, and then move around the corner to try and nail Bran, who's got the hostage there. As I do so, this Moran attempts to discover along this path here. I've gone prone because there's another Moran in suppression fire here, and there's an intruder up in this building. Now, as I moved the Anathaematic across and went prone, he did roll successfully to discover me here, so the Anathaematic now will lose surprise shot against Bran also. And as soon as I move out, I'm going to get hacked. So it gets a bit annoying. So we move around here, and here's the main photo. So the Anathaematic is prone. It moves to the corner to shoot Bran. Bran can engage, I think, physical 13 or something awesome like that, with no penalties, and the Anathaematic is hitting on 10s. Well, no, it should be hitting on 13s, shouldn't he? Because it's +3 for short range, -3 for camo only. So 13s, 3 dice versus, 13 on 1 dice, I think it is. At the same time, his Spectre hits me with a Carbonite rather than Isolation because he just wants a higher chance of getting it off, and a Crazy Koala hits me in the face. What happens as a result of this order is that the Anathaematic does get hacked and immobilized. The Crazy Koala bounces off him. Bran fails his engage roll, and the Anathaematic hits Bran 3 times, causing 6 saves altogether with the BTS included, and wipes him off the face of the earth, meaning that he doesn't have hostage control at the end of the game, so I win quite decisively. I then attempted to try and pick up my classified with a Unidron, and that failed. But let's just talk about the fact that this is a bit of a misgame because I shouldn't have been allowed to capture one of his models with my remote. That was just illegal. You can't actually do that. Having said that, I didn't need that civilian in the end to have pulled this off, because I could have, just used the Anathematic at the end here, maybe to go after a hostage, or to, complete the classified somehow. So there was the opportunity for that. But if I had known from the start that the Q drone couldn't have picked up a hostage, would I have moved the Dr. Worm out there instead? Or, would he have come after me in the same way with the Jaguar? Would have different things happened? And I'm pretty sure they would have, but it would have been a different game. Anyway, we still learned a fair bit, and I still felt that we engaged with this mission in a way that was interesting, and we had a game of infinity where a lot of variance, sometimes he got very lucky, sometimes he got very unlucky, and same on my side. But hope you guys enjoyed this one, got a little bit out of it, and we'll see you on the next one.